Hey guys, it's Matt with the Wheatley Realty Group with Kate today.
Hello again.
And we are coming to you from the We See You podcast. And as we're starting to figure this baby out. We're starting off with a what I like about you section. So I'm going to start this off for people that don't know Kate, if they're watching from the page, if they're watching from Kate sharing, they probably already know this. But one thing I admire about Kate within the brokerage and as a person is, I guess I would say kind of like a fearless leadership role that also is very compassionate with understanding, right? A lot of us do a lot of work here on understanding psychology and people because we deal with all different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you're on the forefront of being open and vulnerable with your journey with that rather than holding it in, you know?
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah.
I do try to be very, very open and vulnerable and have the hard conversations. Brandon and I actually talked about that a little bit in ours. And I think the reason why I do that is because so many people with the whole we see you mentality feel like whatever they're going through, nobody could ever possibly understand.
Oh, yeah.
So if I can be the first one to be vulnerable and lay all the cards on the table, then it might open a door for them to do the same thing.
Right.
And I also feel like I want to be the narrator of my own story. I don't want people to think or assume. So if I'm mad, you know I'm mad. Mm-hmm. If I'm ecstatic, you know I'm ecstatic, because I want to be the author of my own story, and I want to be vulnerable that if other people have to have a hard conversation with me, they feel safe to do so.
Right. That's awesome. So. And you said something in there that will take us to what we're dying to talk about, which is Ted Lasso. Something
Spoilers
that we
will probably happen because we have no chill.
Yeah, well, you said about it was being vulnerable and kind of letting your guard down first. A lot of people have their guard up from past trauma, from all this other stuff. And this is a real estate office that's talking more about how people operate and work. And it just goes to show why we have such good connections with our past clients, why we get referrals. And it's because we take the time to deep dive into that, right? And show them where we're vulnerable first. Mm-hmm. And that's great. I have an example of, recently I had a seller that was upset. They have a friend or a family member actually that is a realtor also. And we had a delay, and it was, for the technical terms of the people watching, it might be a little boring, but it was an appraisal delay. Everything else is done. Had a hard time scheduling an appraiser. And, after like the third time of being upset about it and communicating with me, I could feel it, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing I can do. And I was trying to explain that. And I finally called the daughter and I said, hey, I'm no better than you are. If you have anything that can help from your experience, let me know. And it's very hard to find that in a egotistical based business, if you will, that's like as soon as you make it, it's like award, I want to do what you do. It's such a high failure rate business that when you make it, it's hard to find that humility at the top, if you will, or at the success point. And it was received with like oh man, like, I honestly don't know. Thank you for telling me. And, we got the appraisal schedule now and we're on the way to closing, but
right.
It's a way of exactly what you just said, like let your guard down, let them in, tell them everything you've done, and then say, hey, I'm not above you. Let's work on this together.
For sure. I think on the opposite side, you took the sell side, so I'll take the buy
there
side.
You go.
On the flip side, when you're talking about buying a house, we're having really hard, really intimate conversations. Mm-hmm. Like, to best serve you, I have to understand the financial situation.
Right.
I have to understand the credit score, which nobody likes talking about. They're uncomfortable conversations you don't bring up, right?
Right.
I have to know how you live in your house. I have to know what's important to you. I have to know a little bit about your relationship with your significant other, because all of those conversations come in. And if every time I walk you into a house, all you're talking about is the placement of the island. I'm just giving a stupid example.
Right.
And
not stupid.
Yeah, but I don't understand the philosophy of, I cook dinner every single night. My husband doesn't get home till late. He doesn't understand how hard it is to watch the kids while I'm cooking, and my island has to face the family room.
The kids' room.
Like whatever. If we don't have that conversation up front, and you're just coming in hot at every house that we look at, there's no room for connection. Right. So when I can go in with a buyer and say, listen, I know this is an uncomfortable conversation. I just want you to know I used to be a teacher. I understand what it's like to be living paycheck to paycheck, and there's no shame in the game.
Right.
Or so many of us have had credit issues, and that's okay. Let me help you get your credit to where it needs to be. Or, hey, I'm married with kids too. I get that. You are not looking at my house. You are not going to offend me.
Right.
So I find the more I let them into my life and what my life functions like and looks like, the faster they get real honest with me. And we usually have success much faster because of that.
Yeah. And like you said, it makes you as the agent more efficient too. You're not wasting time on all these exploration visits of homes that will never work.
Yes.
Based off of just gaining someone's trust and knowing that you're there for them. Before we really dove into the psychology of all this stuff, Brennan and I would talk when it was just me and him, and it was like, well, we put you first, and we said it and we meant it, but we didn't understand it. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So it was like, we're doing it, but why is it working? And then 2018, 2019 was where it started to become like, okay, what's Matt doing to be successful in his business, and why should we follow him? And it helped me ask questions, and that's one of the big things that I think, if you're listening out there and maybe you're stuck or you are getting success, no matter what it is, positive, negative, if you just ask yourself questions, like, why do I do this every day? Why do I wake up at 8 instead of 7?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's so many motivational things, like you have to wake up at 4:30 to be successful. I don't.
For sure not.
So it's a personal journey, and I think that's why the questions have to be personal, right?
Absolutely.
Like tailored to you. Like, if I'm not happy where I'm at, why am I not happy? What am I doing every day? And I'll go back into this again because I think you can't say it too much. Is your thoughts dictate your actions dictate your habits dictate your thoughts.
Absolutely.
So if you try to change your habits, it's not going to work because your thoughts are the same. It always starts with how you think. Mm-hmm. So that's why they say, like...
And understanding why you think that way.
Yeah.
That was huge for me.
Yeah.
Just having somebody... Okay, full disclosure, big fan of self-help, self-discovery, go to therapy every single week. Love it.
Nobody is perfect.
Correct.
Nobody, and you shouldn't be.
So, and I think the biggest aha for me when I started therapy was, why? Mm-hmm. Well, and most of the time, I did not have an answer. And I didn't have an answer at the top of my head, and it was just, I don't know, because it makes me mad. But why does it make you mad? Mm-hmm. What is actually triggering you? So that's when you start doing, I think the question why can lead you down so many paths if you're brave enough to answer them.
And usually your problems are on the other side of the answers that you don't have for the why.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's deep, and it's, we'll go back to Ted Lasso again, but
it will help you, but it'll piss you off first.
The truth will help you, and it will, and not maybe, it will hurt before it sets you free.
Yes.
And that, again, it's another one of those expressions I've heard, like the truth hurts, but it'll set you free. And I hear it, I get it, but it means something different. And I'm sure later in life it'll mean something different too.
Absolutely.
But right now in this current stage, we're all accepting it as being... accepting people for their differences, celebrating their differences, highlighting their strengths, helping them with their weaknesses. That's what the word team has such a negative
connotation.
Yep, that one. English teacher. I'm going up for that, setting up for that quote, and then I don't get it. But the word team, it just has that such, in the real estate world at least, it has that tarnish on it. From how the team leaders choose to operate their teams, the credit you don't get, obviously
the me versus we.
Yes, the me versus we, and then and they sell it as the we, but then me gets all the credit, right? And it goes back to like saying one thing and doing another. The words don't match the actions. Right. You're not walking the talk.
And it immediately evokes distrust.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it puts anything to me that puts someone that you care about, that's putting your business essentially as their own, shouldn't be undermined with just small little things like, oh, well, if I was to leave, this would happen. Or if I was to leave, it doesn't look like I've ever done anything to certain people. And that's just it's a small gesture. It shouldn't matter, but it does. Right. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
And it's a very interesting psychological thing that we deal with in real estate. But going back to the team mentality, since we have that like group mentality where your strengths, our strengths. Brandon's running the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a strength of his. He enjoys it. He loves it. And that's something that, I don't have to have full control over this. I'm learning to let that stuff go and let everyone flourish in their areas that they can flourish in, really.
For sure. So you started this podcast saying something that you admire about me. So I'm going to turn the tables on you.
Oh, here we go.
So one thing that immediately drew me not only to the brokerage, but to wanting to be your friend, because I'll just be honest, I can work with pretty much anybody. That does not dictate a friendship
Right.
for me. I can be kind to everybody, but I consider you a friend, not just my broker and not a coworker. And one thing that did draw, you are like infectiously optimistic about
Delusionally optimistic.
all of the things all of the time. And I say it all of the time. Being here pushes me to be better.
Awesome.
Because I'm a little firecracker. I got big emotions on both sides. I'm fiercely loyal. I am like the Irish pit bull. So
Fiercely loyal would have been what I should have led with when I started. Yes.
Fierce being the key word. No, loyal is the key word, but it's a little intense. And when I first started, you would always talk to me about, I'm probably going to say the names wrong. Sorry in advance. Peter Cronin.
Peter Crone, yep.
And who's the other guy that you watch?
Kerwin Ray.
Yes. And I'm like, man, he is like all about the self-help. I'm here for it. Like, I'm a Brene Brown girl, but like you got to find the person that speaks
relatable. Right?
Yes, to you. Like they all say the exact same thing.
Yep.
Glennon Doyle is another one that I'm like, oh, yes, you know my soul. So I was watching Apple TV and I came across this show, Ted Lasso. Mm-hmm. And immediately I was like, oh my God, Matt needs to watch this show. He will love it. It takes place in England. For those of you guys who don't know.
I'm from England.
There it is. It's football, like
it's
the real
football.
Yeah.
Football.
Yes. So it's an American football coach who goes to, I'm trying really hard to not give spoilers because you cannot spoil the show for people who haven't seen it. Goes over to London to coach a Premier League football team.
Right.
And if y'all know anything about football in England,
they're diehard fans.
it's intense. It is really, really intense.
They do not accept him well.
No.
That's for sure.
So he knows nothing about soccer. He's just an amazing coach and an amazing person. He comes over there with ulterior motives from one of the characters. He was not set up for success, I think is the best way to say it. But I got Matt addicted to it. I've watched it through 2 times. He's watched the first 2 seasons.
I just finished it, yeah.
Anxiously waiting the 3rd. And when we were talking about what we want to talk about in the podcast, the only thing that we've been talking about for 2 weeks now is Ted Lasso. So we are going to talk about Ted Lasso and how it relates to our personalities, real estate, our career. And we're going to try really hard to not give any spoilers because you have to watch this show.
Fun fact, though, one thing I can spoil for you. One of the commentators for the football team, is my old neighbor. He played for Derby County, which is where I grew up. And I remember walking just a little. I'd have to make a left turn by the soccer field we played on, which is just a field. And then another left turn, and he was right there. And him and his brother Daryl played for Derby. And I believe, if I'm correct, Chris played for the English national team. I think they both did, but one of them started, one of them didn't. But yeah, he's actually in the show, and it's pretty cool. There's actually quite a few other people that I know from the soccer world in the show.
Matt knows famous people.
Well, I knocked on his door, and he was like, yeah, that's not me. And he's like, I'll go find him, signed it, came back and gave it to me. It's kind of funny. He's like, this
awesome.
8-year-old kid has no idea, But no, they became pretty popular, and they actually had to move because all the kids would play soccer on the field, and they were like maybe 100 feet from the field. We just go, I'll knock on his door every time. You want to come play with us? Come have a kick around. Yeah. But you see that a lot in the movie. But one of the lines that stood out to me, and this is towards the end, which is why it stands out to me a little bit more. At the end, he's kind of going through a couple of things, and he says, every choice is a chance. I was just like, wow. Because in that situation, he had made the wrong choice, and he was coming clean to all the players and coaching staff and everything. And it wasn't a terrible choice. It was just more of a, he wasn't practicing what he preached. And again, that goes back to the relatability, right? Like, you don't always make the right choice, but you have to make a choice in a leadership position.
Yes.
And you make the best one you can make in that moment. And if it's wrong, I would venture to guess if I made a bad choice here, because we're so open and honest with everything that we're doing, you guys would come to tell me, hey, I think this choice is wrong because of this. I would take into consideration everyone's opinion. And then if it was the wrong choice, I'd come and say, hey guys, I think this was the wrong choice. I think we need to reevaluate this. Yes, we know the choice is wrong. What would be the right choice?
Right.
What other avenues can we explore to make this turn around? And again, it's not a life impacting choice or anything in the movie. It's just more along the lines of like, hey, I want you guys to be fully open and honest with me, and I wasn't with you, and this is going to affect the team morale,
right,
type thing. And it always in life and in this show comes back to something you're scared of. You don't want to tell them because you're scared of something, and we won't ruin any of that part for you, but you know, the team does get a therapist into the second season, I think it is.
Yep.
And you know, usually overly positive, optimistic people do have things that they hold back. And there's a few things that come out of why Ted is the way he is. But It was really cool to see that one line, it resonated with me very well, because it really is true. Every choice is a chance to do something amazing.
Yeah. Or to learn something. You know, we always make the wrong choice. Every single person is going to make the wrong choice at some point in their life.
We usually focus on them more than the good ones we make.
Absolutely. But think of the opportunity that you have to grow really deep connections by simply saying, I messed up.
Yeah.
Or I missed the mark, which is so hard for so many people to do. A lot of times people, okay, so I did that and I'm sorry, but, and as soon as you put the but in there, you're negating all accountability and all ownership.
When you did the team builder, you had a really good quote with, like, whenever you're doing something like that, you're stepping into that vulnerability zone, right? That's the Brene Brown. And whenever you're being vulnerable, you're opening yourself up to get hurt. Yeah. And it's scary. It's scary stuff. But if you flip that around, like, as I've been researching different ages and different mentalities, right? They say the older people don't care about that stuff. Well, that's because they've been through it and they've seen it. And honestly, usually the person that opens up to be vulnerable is admired by 8 or 9 out of 10 of those people, rather than judged, because they want to be able to do the same.
Absolutely.
And in a leadership position, if you're the one to do it, which is Ted Lasso in this case, it shows how it can change the character of an entire locker room, team, support staff, ownership, and above. It can not only trickle down, it can trickle up.
Yes.
Like, you can change the culture with one little piece. And then obviously the bad too.
Well, and think too, the flip side of the conversation, right? So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need to apologize, I messed up and I'm sorry. Think of how much power you have in the choice that you have right there.
Yeah.
Are you going to, and again, it's another Ted Lasso moment.
Yep.
I won't give it away, but somebody is issuing Ted Lasso an apology, and he had every reason, every right to fly off the handle, to be nasty, to be mean, to quit.
It would have been totally justified.
Absolutely. And instead he goes, I forgive you. What you're going through makes you do crazy things. I get it. And I think so often when somebody's apologizing, if we can put ourselves in their position, if we can remember how hard it is for us to apologize, for us to hold ourselves accountable, and we can put ourselves in a truly empathetic mindset and just forgive, think of how deep that relationship can then become. Because you changed the narrative. They were expecting you to get mad. They were expecting the backlash. They were ready to take it on the chin. And for you to say, I forgive you. It's okay.
And I really love the way that show portrays it in the real sense too, because it wasn't like, oh, I forgive you, and then it's all sunshine and rainbows. It was like, that a-hole forgave me, and I hate him more for it. Because a lot of times our natural fight or flight instinct will come through and just be mad. Like, you're ready when you're apologizing, you're ready for an argument or a fight or to be mad.
Absolutely.
Your subconscious put you into that. And it shows in the show that it doesn't always happen quickly like that. And then, you know, again, we won't give you too much, but again, it does end up being good, but it takes time to go through it. Another thing that I really loved about the show was how it wasn't all like, you know, I know you and I share we're fixers, right? We're like, there's something that we share and we battle with because sometimes we overstep, right? So, and we just jump to like naturally wanting to fix versus listen. And in that show, you know, he understands when he gets the job, he can't go in there and just fix everyone, right? It's going to take, he goes through the understanding, and then he goes through just the, and this won't give too much away in the show, but like just small gestures, like here's a suggestion box, and they're all like, you're an idiot, go home. If you're not familiar with the phrase wanker, you will be. After that show, you will be, because you've heard it 100 times. But you know, they're all, you know, very combative at the start, and he's just so positive and optimistic, and you know, he doesn't know anything about the sport, and it is funny. One of my favorite quotes in the interview is like, well, you know, define the offside rule for me, and he comes back with something quick, like, I'll get back to you on that, ha ha ha. And he goes, and then they say something like, well, what did you think about your first opponent, Crystal Palace? And he said, sounds fragile, if you ask me. Like that would come through as like just crap talk and like, oh my goodness, we're gonna crush them now. But you know, that's someone that doesn't know what that team is called or about or their history. Like that's a perfectly reasonable comeback to someone talking to you about a sport you don't know, a team you don't know. And it's just pretty cool how that, like for me at least, being from the country, the relatability to some of the slang and how people act, football players in general. We've talked about this because we play on a rec soccer league. Brandon said there's two types of soccer players. You know what I'm talking about, right? There is no really in between. There's the sweet caring ones, and there's the douche that just doesn't think they can do any wrong.
Yep.
And you'll see that in the show. But it's really cool to see.
I'm going to circle back really fast.
Go ahead, do it.
Okay. So it was really funny. I like to kind of know where my brain's going when we talk about a topic. And I said, I'm going to write this down. If it comes up organically, I'll bring it up. If it doesn't, just remind me to talk to you about it later. I'm going to show you. This is fact. I really wrote it down. And then you said it. So I'm going to talk about it. So I always used to say, I'm a fixer. I'm a fixer. I've even said it about you. Like, you don't always have to fix it. You just have to listen.
Right.
So I've already shared that I'm in therapy. And one of the things that I'm working on right now, she said, you say fix all the time. What does fix mean to you? And I sat and I thought about it. I was like, well.
Ooh, questions. Asking questions.
Right? So, Matt, what does fix mean to you?
Oh, man.
If you have to fix something.
It's broken.
So.
You're assuming it's broken.
And I said the same exact thing. And she challenged me and said, Caitlin, people are not broken. People are hurt. People don't need fixed.
So
they
true.
need healed. And that was the light bulb moment. And like, of course, a lot of tears, because that's what therapy does, where you have this profound revelation of, oh my God, I've been doing this wrong for so long, because we don't need to fix other people. And oftentimes, like, think of it when you're mad or when you're upset. If somebody's trying to make it better the whole time, it typically makes it worse because you don't feel heard, you don't feel validated.
That's me.
And
I do that.
It's me too. Don't feel bad. That's why we can talk about this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if I can switch my brain and my thought process to how can I heal them?
Yeah, what do they need?
What do they need from me right now?
That's powerful.
And even just, you know, I have a friend who got really sad, terrible news about a family member, and they're really close to this family member. And old Caitlin would have been, what do you need? What can I do? Do you need me to da-da-da-da-da? And they don't need any of that.
Right.
They need to be heard. And they need a container for those really hard emotions. If they need to be mad, if they need to cuss about it, if they need to cry, they just need me to hold space. And so when I responded, that feels really hard. Tell me what you need from me.
Right. So much,
Like,
just in the way you said that, the first one gives me anxiety,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm already going through a lot. Now I've got to go through this.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I've
you're
got
trying
to answer you.
Now I have to try to manage your emotions while I'm having my own emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the one you just said just now was very calming versus very demanding, if you will. And it really goes to show you that changing one word in anything can change your entire mindset to something. Because I'm a big fan of, like you say, Peter Crone and Kerwin, and they always share the positivity things around, like, you know, I've got to go work out to get in shape. I've got to get fit. I've got to, you know, go to work to make money to provide for my family versus, and this is even in a word, this is just a letter. I get to go to work.
Yeah.
I get to go work out. Like I have the opportunity to do it because we take so much stuff for granted.
Absolutely.
Right? And the attitude of gratitude is probably the single-handedly thing that can change your life. Now, you can say it, and again, it might take a while to understand it. You got to go through life and circumstances and change and pain and struggles and everything, because you can't have. You're a big fan of this one. You can't have the positive without the negative.
Oh,
you've got to acknowledge the whole spectrum. Now, you can choose where you fall in that spectrum. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a reactive person, you know, something negative happens, you can get negative. If you're a proactive person that tries to see both sides, whatever the circumstance is, you know, death is a big one. You know, it's very hard to see the positive in death. Mm-hmm. But there's always equal parts positive and negative in the world. If there wasn't, like the quote I shared, if there is no show. If you're trying to prove someone wrong or you're trying to do something to be better, that means there is a worse to be done. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's so many different variations of that one thing I will share with you guys, and this is the best analogy. I love analogies because I have a hard time articulating. We know this. I'm self-aware. But one of the best analogies I ever got for this, and it's very eye-opening when you sit down and actually think about it, and we use a real estate analogy because it's easier. There's two homeless people, identical age, everything, two homes, identical. They both have a leak in the roof, and they both have a shower that only runs cold. The landlord's the same person, and they have the opportunity to let them stay in there for free. And you have two identical people. One person has the attitude of gratitude. I'm really thankful for this house. I know it has a leak in the roof, and I have to mop up in the kitchen all the time, and I can only take cold showers, but it's way better than what I had. Mm-hmm. And then you have the person that says, this sucks. I have to keep mopping this up. You should fix this. This is your house.
Yep.
Both, you know, it's free, so they should be a little bit more grateful, but both understandable scenarios, right? However, this is where it flips. When the landlord of both homes has the opportunity to fix a house, which one do they fix? And I think everyone can agree you fix the person's house that's grateful, because the other person is just going to find something else to complain about. And it goes back into, you know, depending on if you're religious or not, but you can go into like, you're blocking your blessings by not being grateful. The blessings can't find you if you're not going to be grateful or have the attitude of gratitude. And I think that's something that we try to instill here, not only in our agents, but in our vendor partners, everyone we come across, our clients. Everything we do, we try to find that positive spin, not to ignore the negative, but to highlight why we're upset in the first place. Ask the questions, right?
Yes.
Ask the why. Why are we upset that we haven't found a house yet? Well, we really need a place to live. Okay. So let's go do this, and this to figure it out. But asking the questions to figure out why people are upset, just similar to what was before. Like, I will meet you at your level.
Yeah.
And say, okay, you guys are upset because the appraisal hasn't been ordered. I've told you why I can't interfere with that. I can't just call an appraiser, otherwise I would. What can we do from your side to fix this? Mm-hmm. And then they become like, okay, they start understanding that I've let them in and there is nothing else I can do.
Right. Right.
And then when you start communicating further, it all comes down to communication, really.
So I feel like that was a really good segue for my favorite Ted Lasso moment.
There we go.
So this is going to be hard to not give spoilers, but I'm going to try my best. So I think you can get this from looking at the preview anyways.
If they've gone through this far of the podcast, they deserve a spoiler.
Okay.
As far as like in a good way.
Okay. So Ted Lasso is almost annoyingly positive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys have spent any amount of time in the soccer universe, really big emotions on both sides of the spectrum. Think me, except a whole team.
Yes.
And there's a scene at the bar where his fierce loyalty to someone comes out, and he's defending this person. But in doing so, also teaches us a really important life lesson about himself. Mm-hmm. And he comes out, the person that he's being low-key combative with to defend the other person is making fun of him very openly, very
Taunting.
obviously, very condescending. And he's
using his money as power.
Yes, thank
basically
you.
Trying to price him out of competing. So
yes. And he challenges him.
Ted
and
uses the only thing he has, right? Like basically access to the team.
Yeah. So he says, all right, we can make a wager. And they're betting on a game of darts is what ends up happening. And
darts is very popular in England. It's one of the top 3 sports.
Yes.
Just so you know about that.
And when he's challenging him, he was throwing the darts with his right hand. And so they agree, they shake hands. Then the person that he's challenging opens up. He's got like a professional dart set.
Sorry, I forgot I had these.
And he goes, oh, sorry, I forgot I was left-handed. And it sets you, Ted Lasso says that, and it sets you up for this really awesome moment where I'll paraphrase the rest, but he basically says, I've been made fun of my entire life. Mm-hmm. I have been counted out of every argument. Mm-hmm. Guys
Ridiculed.
always... Yeah, he's like, and I never understood it. And it really used to bother me. I would beat myself up about it. I didn't understand why I wasn't liked. And then I realized that all of these guys who thought they all had it figured out knew nothing. And that was on them, not on him. Yeah. And he brings up a famous Walt Whitman quote that says, be curious, not judgmental. Mm-hmm. And then it goes on. I will not spoil it for you because it's seriously my favorite scene of the entire series. You have to watch it. This is a lot of free advertising for Ted Lasso. Like, give us a like, give us a share, help us out too.
Use code TED10 on Apple TV.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Give us a kickback. I always wanted to be an influencer.
There you go. Okay, but it goes along the lines of if you can ask the hard questions, if you can figure out what makes somebody tick, why they're doing what they're doing, you will walk away with an infinite amount of understanding. And knowledge is power. Okay, you guys know that I'm the former teacher here. Yeah. We've talked about that in like every podcast that I've been on. But think about it. If you have a really upset, we'll use road rage for an example because we talk about real estate all the time. Okay. I love Awilda. She is like the yin to my yang. I'm the hothead. She is the cool as a cucumber. So we were driving together one day, and this guy's just driving like an idiot. And I was sitting in all of the judgment. All of the judgment. Now, had I been curious instead of judgmental, my blood pressure probably would not have gotten to where it was.
It affects you more than him, right?
Yes. And so Awilda, she does not watch Ted Lasso. This is just who she is and why we love her. Goes, well, let's think of every reason of why they're driving like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have diarrhea. They really need to get to a toilet.
Or food poisoning.
Yeah. Maybe his wife's in labor. And so she starts just being curious. What's motivating this guy to drive that way? And by the time we got to our destination, we're laughing about it because we've come up, he's long gone.
Right.
We came up with every possible scenario. Mm-hmm. And that car ride could have gone so much differently. Yeah. I could have let that road rage like fuel my day and talk about all the idiot drivers and all the things that make us mad. And by the time we got to our destination, we would have both been rawr.
This is the perfect segue into why your real estate agent matters.
Yeah. Okay. Go on with your
like
bad self. I do.
See
yes,
where I'm going there?
I do.
So same thing. The vehicle is your journey, right? Awilda is your realtor. Kate's your buyer in that situation. You can find reasons to be upset with your realtor, with how they're driving because other people are driving aggressively. However, what happened in that scenario was someone diffused the situation and took you happily to the closing table. Yes. And you didn't even realize it until you got there.
Yep.
Like that is just in like it's mind blowing and it's hard to articulate even for, not just for me, why in our brokerage, people are starting to become successful without any sort of like difference other than just the perspective and the culture we have as far as just positivity and it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. Like you have to have that with your clients.
Well, and think too, I'm going to give you another kudo here. Going back to this quote, there are so many people that can look at you and what you've built in judgment. Oh, he pays for Zillow leads. Oh, he does this. Oh, he works at Bella Colina. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
you know, there's all of these stories where if all of these haters were curious,
yeah,
what's he doing differently?
mm-hmm.
What's he doing that we're not doing? How is he getting agents to leave their brokerage with never, ever recruiting them? Why are
That's
people...
another one. Why is he recruiting so hard?
Yeah.
Guess what? If they asked,
Fun
he
fact.
doesn't.
In fact, we have to turn people away, and
Yeah.
we are healers, and
Yeah.
we're people.
It's very hard to do so.
Yes.
But you need to know to serve people the best. You have to be at your best.
Yes.
And serving 100 people at 50% is not the same as serving 25 at 100, right?
Correct.
So knowing your boundaries, and again, going back and asking questions, is hiring another agent best for the brokerage?
Best for our clients.
Best for my clients, your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Is it best for company culture? You know, when we did go through that growth phase, it was I started to hear the mumblings of, well, I don't want another person on the Zillow lead rotation. It's going to take business from me, or the negative condemnations with, people joining in competition.
Right.
Whereas I'm more in the and you've heard me say this before because I'm technically a competing broker, right? But what I tell people is, I'm not going to compete with you if you're here. If you're here, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to help you build your business if our circles overlap. If you're somewhere else, I don't have any motivation not to compete with you, so I'm going to.
Right.
Right. And so in those situations, we do a really good job, I think, here of cheering each other on versus being, because you again, every choice is a chance. So you have a chance basically to say, I want to be negative here and say there's another person coming and that's less inventory for me or less opportunities, whatever you want to say, lead rotation, whatever it is. Or you can say, I'm going to help cheer them on and that's going to come back with good karma, however you want to, whatever you believe in or talk to yourself about. Those are the ways that make it, you have a choice how to see that.
Yeah. Put good out, get good back.
Right. And you, Brandon and Nawilda, setting up the mentor panel and helping give back to the agents. I know it's been a lot of work, and I know my gut tells me I know it will pay off in droves. However that works, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But having the faith, you have to have faith in that. You have to have faith in, otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think you also, you hit the nail on the head there. You have to have faith. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what you believe in. I really, truly don't. I'm probably like the most... I don't know, welcoming of all of the things.
Yeah. A lot of them overlap. They really do. They're just misunderstood. They overlap. They all the Buddhism's very, therapist, motivational mindset. Mm-hmm. And just because you don't have to choose a side. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to
and you
force
also
someone
don't
else
have to participate in every argument that you're invited to.
Right.
And we see that so often in Ted
Politics.
Lasso too. Oh yeah. Well,
choosing a side.
Think of how many negative interactions come flying at Ted Lasso's face.
Just in the beginning.
Yeah, and he just takes all of them in stride. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I really love about this show and what it can teach all of us is seeing the absolute best and giving people the opportunity to do the right thing.
Yeah.
How many times in these 2 seasons could Ted Lasso have stepped in and done it or laid down a hard, fast rule or whatever? Mm-hmm. And instead, he puts it on his players to do the right thing.
He empowers. Once he figures out the culture and the dynamic, I won't give away too much, but basically it's kind of silly at the start. He puts a suggestion box out, like I said, and he gets a lot of go homes. And then he's going through it with his assistant coach. And he goes, shower pressure sucks. He's like, and then Ted goes, oh, I got one. Like, and you're like, what? This is a professional soccer team facing like relegation, which if you don't know, we don't really have leagues here, but basically D1 to D2.
Yep.
Like huge pay cuts, endorsements leave, like giant problems. And he's like, oh, I finally got something I can fix. And it's crazy how he goes through and they're anonymous, so he doesn't know who's complaining about it. Could be the kit boy, right? The water boy, if you will, in America. But it's so cool that he makes that one positive change. He fixes it because it's the only piece of feedback he got that is a real issue, even though it's not a real. It's minor in this case, but it's a real issue. And then he wins over the captain of the team, basically. Not completely with that one, but it's a baby step towards it.
Yeah.
And then he can help empower that person to spread it just spreads what he does. And the other thing I really like about the show, again, being realistic, is they don't always win. They struggle like we do in life.
There's not always a happy ending.
There's not always a happy ending. And you get to see that Ted Lasso's human too. It's not like nobody leaves this thing saying, I want to be just like Ted Lasso, because he's been through a lot. But we all have, right? It just goes to show you that the choices he made led him to be all these. Think about it again, the attitude of gratitude. All these doors open for him. It wasn't ideal. The start of the show, once you figure out everything, that's a terrible. Anyone could be in that first situation and just have no positivity whatsoever, and then have more negativity thrown at them,
Absolutely.
and more, and then have all the at the end of the season you get the other stuff come out too. But it's so powerful, and it resonates with us so much because we understand the power of the choice and getting the chance from the choice.
Well, and I also appreciate he's a goofy character.
Yeah.
He's a silly character, but we see every side of him. He gets mad and yells. He cries. He drinks. I'm trying so hard to not give away things. But at the end of the day, you can see him and he's so relatable.
Are you talking about Lead Tasso? Lead Tasso? Wake up, coach. Wake up.
My name's I get paid to sell houses and I'm angry all the time.
Edit. Brandon. Edit. That's too funny. But yes, you basically get, he's a real human. He's going through real stuff. He's not the guy that is, has it all that you'd look at in a Disney movie at the end.
Right.
It's very real. And I think that's why it resonates with so many different people, because there are so many different characters there that are just, at the end of the day, it's a show on people that are misunderstood.
Yes.
And we can all be there. And another person I've added to the list who I look up to a lot, which a lot of people probably know, is, I would want to say it's Jay Shetty on Instagram. He's a really, he's a motivational speaker, similar to Simon Sinek, where they kind of help you change your mindset on some things. Okay. He has two really good ones. The first one is he believes in the 3 H's, which is the head, the heart, and the hands. And that one was so powerful when I first saw it or read it. I was basically watching one of his podcast episodes, and he was talking about, like, I believe a full life is with the head, the heart, and the hands. He said the head is the clear vision of where you want to go, right? And the heart is like the courage to make the tough decisions when they come up, the hard conversations. Yeah. And he said a lot of people can look successful with a good head and a good heart. He said where it really changes and when you figure out your purpose in life, which is a very big word for him. And he says your purpose is ever changing, which is also powerful in its own self. And if you look into that, I can tell you, I mean, I don't want to speak for you. Do you want to tell everyone your purpose? Or your why? Let's
my why.
Right.
My why is my child.
Okay.
My why is Lily.
if you can, your why and your purpose are pretty intertwined. And I can tell you it's ever changing because how long have you had Lily?
5 years.
Right. So your purpose was never always Lily. It was that changed your purpose and your why.
Absolutely.
Right? So he says that can be ever changing. However, when you add in the hands, that is the gift of reaching out to give back the knowledge that the clear vision that you've learned, the courage that you've had, the knowledge that you have. Not always to, usually it's to coworkers or peers or things like that, kids, giving that stuff back, but also to your community, helping people be better. And that really changed my perspective when you're in business. It's very cutthroat and people are copying you and imitating you. And, I've always told myself, well, if that happens, it's the best form of flattery. But it doesn't feel good when you say that. That's just a way to not be mad at it. However, if I can switch that to say, okay, the hands of my work are being extended to other people so much that it's influencing them to be better, that feels good.
Well, and if you think about it, I mean, I'm about to go full on English teacher nerd. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just make sure you pronounce it right and then give me the definition.
That is the hero cycle.
Okay,
so we all look up to heroes. Marvel's making a freaking killing right now, so I know that I can say what I'm saying with a fair amount of confidence. In the hero's journey, in the hero cycle, so they start off with normal. They have the awakening, something that they realize makes them different. They have to go on the journey. They have to experience the trials. They have to beat the big villain. And the thing that separates the hubris and like the anti-heroes, the villains, you have to bring what you learn on your journey back. You have to cross that threshold back. So if you think about all of these people that we look up to, that we want to embody, that we want to be more like, somebody who's worthy of saying, that's my mentor.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things, like you said, it's not the head, it's not the heart. Those are important. It's the bringing back, the giving back, okay, you have it. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
So
I remember the other one now. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
He says, and this one blew my mind. He says, they asked him to say, what's something you're okay with that almost nobody else is? And he says, being misunderstood. And I was like, goals?
Yeah. I'm not there
goals?
yet.
Yeah, definitely not there yet. But, going back to like the Ted Lasso, like everyone's being misunderstood, Ted is probably the closest one to being okay with being misunderstood. He doesn't over-explain himself. He doesn't go into detail about why he is the way he is or whatever. The one thing that was the most powerful for me, and I won't give you away why, but when he says, I don't give up on anything, and then you figure out why, that'll hit you. If that doesn't hit you in the gut and the heart and the head at the same time, it's a
There's
big
seriously something wrong with you. I'll give you my therapist number.
Yeah, good luck with her. Jeez, that's gonna be a tough one. I haven't met anyone, and I know a lot of different people. I've talked to a few people over the last few weeks, like, have you seen this show? Like, I just love it. It's infectious, right?
Yes.
It's so, and it's not just a positivity infectious. It's a relatable, and how everyone can kind of go down that journey if they can see it. Well, I feel like Ted he's like the in this thing. He's just like the what if on the positive side, versus the what if on the negative side.
Well, and I think too, if you look at the character arcs of every single character, you can walk away from every episode with something that makes you want to do better.
Right.
So for me, it's a silly example, but one of the players is down. He didn't have a great, and he comes and says, "Do you know which animal has the shortest memory?"
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's a goldfish. 10 seconds, they forget everything.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So
the happiest animal. Yeah.
Yes. So he uses that as, okay, yeah, you messed up.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Be a goldfish. So you have 10 seconds to be mad.
Can you imagine a coach, an American football coach coming up to a linebacker that messed up and be like, be a goldfish. Not a lion, not a gorilla. Don't be pushing people. Be a goldfish. Forget about it. Do your job.
Yes. And
so powerful.
And honestly, I have been like saying that to myself because Matt knows I am the opposite of a goldfish. Something happens. It's like, I cannot let it go until I have some form of closure.
Reasoning.
Yes. Like I have to understand the why. And it's a horrible trait because I create all these stories. I create all this stress. So for me, it's be a goldfish. Be a goldfish. Be a goldfish. It happened. It's not a reflection of you. Be a goldfish. And I don't know where I'm going with this. I just really like that quote.
No, I mean, think about it. Like in professional golf, they always say you've got to erase that last shot because they start talking about the yips and they're like, no, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yep.
Well, in golf, it's the shanks. And your professional golfers go through that. I mean, they made movies on it, right?
Yep. Tennis players too.
And it's like you almost forget. And there's another part in Ted Lasso where they kind of just take someone back to having fun with the game versus it being a job and work.
Yep.
And it's just so cool because if every little kid gets into a sport they love because they look up to someone and it's like fun. And then all of a sudden there's usually this battle or transition where it becomes work or exhausting or burnout. And that happens in business too, right?
Yep.
Entrepreneurship is not fun, and everyone here has their own little business underneath ours. So it's very relatable in that fact that you have to be a goldfish and you have to be able to forget and let go and have fun. Like have fun with it, enjoy it. Why did you like it in the first place? Going back to what we just said, ask questions. Why am I stressed right now? I went through that last year. We had a few changes and I was like, why am I stressed? Why am I this? Why am I that? Why is this bothering me? And it always went back to, well, I'm gonna have more work or this or that. And then it ended up being, well, then I have more opportunity for other people to help take a bigger role or be more involved or actually help me versus just look from the outside in, be like, oh, Matt's so stressed. So it was nice to see, everything. One of Peter Crone's best quotes that he has, and he uses it all the time. He says, it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. And if you really think about that, what he's saying is don't live in the past. If you made a bad choice, again, open up, own up to it, make the right choice, tell the people that you care about, that you want in your life about it, and then move on with it. Forgive yourself, because a lot of times we fall into those categories of we're stressed because we haven't forgave ourselves, or we're trying to run from something or hide, or we're just, it's just stressful because we know there's something we need to do and we're not doing it.
Yeah.
You're having that battle internally the whole time.
So as I was listening to you, like 900 scenes, because that's just how this show is, just like ran through. And even the characters that we dislike, and I'm not going to say names.
Yeah.
And the characters that we love, and the characters that we fall in love with over time, if two things didn't happen, we would never have these story arcs, and we would certainly not be sitting here talking about the show and relating it to our everyday life. One, you had to be curious enough to get beyond what you see out front. And I think that's something that we all need to do with all of our relationships. It's easy to walk in and say, oh, God, Matt's being such a dick. He's so stressed today. I'll talk to him later when he's happy.
Happens all the time, guys.
Like, if I'm not, it doesn't. But like, if I'm not willing to be curious.
Right. Then you're going to be judgmental.
Yes. And if I'm not willing to be a goldfish and say, yeah, he is in a really bad mood today. And that's okay, because sometimes I'm in a really bad mood too. And forget it and come in with a clean slate the very next day. Anybody who is living in judgment, living in denial, or living in anger, you'll never be fulfilled, in my opinion. You'll never be happy. You'll never find success because you're only looking at the negative. So if we can take all of what we talked about and put it into a takeaway, I think it's to be curious, to look deeper, and to greet anger or envy or whatever negative feelings like a goldfish.
Yeah.
And accept it and know that. Oh, I have one other thing that I don't know why I didn't say it earlier. I think I didn't want to interrupt you.
Probably. It's the same thing. You hear all these things and you want to fire back, but you're like, no, not my time.
I'm listening.
Be a goldfish.
Yes. So, one really cool takeaway that I learned: really hard emotions, the big explosive ones, rage, anguish, they psychologically cannot last longer than 2 minutes. But they're the hardest emotions, so we want to get rid of them. We either want to justify them, explain them away, ignore them, push them down, repress them. Yeah. All of these things. But if we can sit in our feelings or sit with somebody in their feelings for 2 minutes
and accept it
and feel it, all of it, chances are it's not going to fester and turn into
resentment or whatever. Yeah.
Think back to Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
When, practice. Yeah, I'm talking about practice. I'm talking about practice.
That's a nice little Allen Iverson quote.
Right? Thank you. You can it's okay to be mad. You don't have to be happy all the time.
Right.
But you have to then be curious. Ask yourself why. What is actually triggering you?
Yeah. And what happens when you're in the Ted Lasso position and you're angry and the rest of them are just like, oh my goodness, it means so much. And a person that's angry and yells all the time falls on deaf ears eventually.
Absolutely.
A person that is, I think Kate's told me this before. She said, if you ever told me that you were disappointed in me, I would feel all the emotions and I would cry, because I don't say it lightly. I'm not like, I'm disappointed we didn't meet our numbers this quarter. I'm disappointed here. I'm disappointed there. It's like the crying wolf analogy, right?
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
If you're not happy, if I was not happy coming in, I'll share the story of yesterday, which is kind of funny. I came in yesterday and I was a little flustered. I've had 2 pickup orders within a dinner and a lunch, so within 20 hours of each other. I called.
Let me just interject. Matt also eats at like the same 3 restaurants on repeat. So it's not like, let's try something new for lunch. Let's go.
I'm a creature of habit.
They have a meal named after this man. I'm not kidding.
Yes.
Okay, so
I won't
continue.
say any names just in case they're watching, because I love both of the establishments.
Yes,
but I called.
We all do.
I called to pick up my regular dinner order to get home. I usually get home around 6. I leave the gym at 5:30. I go pick it up. So I called. I'm sorry, we're a little busy at the moment. Can you hold for a second? Sure, no problem. 3 minutes go by. I'm like, okay, I really want to get home on time. I'm like, okay, you know what? They probably forgot. I had to hang up and I'll call back. Probably called back 25 times and it was dial tone every time. I show up at the restaurant, phone's on the counter, just laying down. I'm like, this is going to suck. So anyway, I tried to talk myself out of it. Why am I mad? There's no need to be mad. It's just a slight inconvenience. People have it way worse than you. Whatever you want to tell yourself. Mm-hmm. And it took about 40 minutes to get the food, which wasn't ideal, but I was pleasant. They were training someone new. And, they were said, thank you for your patience afterwards. If I was a douche, they wouldn't have said that, right? They would have just been like, oh, you can wait, whatever. Because there's people in front of me, but they got it out because they know I go there all the time. So I was like, thank you. You did your best. I understand that. Got home. The next day, for lunch, I go somewhere different. I call. And I'm like, I'm calling early this time. Same thing. Puts the phone down on the counter. I know this because when I went in, it was there still. And I was like, I'm not going to hang up because I couldn't get through last time. I hit like the 6-minute mark and I'm like, I got to hang up now. Same thing. Call back straight to voicemail. I walked in and I was a little bit more
sassy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say the word's emotional, but a little bit more intense about it. I was like, hey, I get it. Things happen. She was newer as well. And I was like, I get it, but can you put it in? I need it to go. I got to get back to work. And I came in and I was all upset. And it was more like you said, I just needed a space to vent and let it out for a minute and then squash it. It's done. Like right now, I'm not upset about it. The businesses I love, the people that do whatever. I'm just sharing it as more of like an example. When I came into the office, it was like, oh my, what's wrong? What is going on? Like, you're never this flustered and I told someone like, hey, if we're doing this podcast today, I would not been in the best mindset for it.
Right.
Which is being aware. But it was just so interesting to see, when in Ted's case, and getting upset in the locker room and actually being loud. He wasn't mean or disrespectful. He was more like, you don't get this. And that goes back to another lady that I follow. You're probably like, geez, how many people does this guy follow? It takes a lot, man. It takes a lot.
But how has following these people changed you?
It's changed me and people around me. Dr. Vanessa is the one I follow, and she said she's a divorced lady she's a therapist, mostly child, like for parents with children, like how to get through tough times, like how to understand your children, because it's very difficult in different phases. And she tells you like how to go back into your regress self and tend to your wounds and heal based off of your triggers, right? So anytime you're angry or mad, you're triggered about something internally. That's just it's so that was so powerful to me when she said it. But she always goes through those type of things and healing and emotions and reactions to situations like that.
Yep.
It's pretty cool how she can take you back into your inner child and heal that inner child that is, because again, we all go through, it can be falling off a bike. It can go really extreme, of course, too, like death and loss and abuse and things like that. But, everyone has those things, and it's great in Ted Lasso. And then she says there's times you have to go great mother or great father.
Mm-hmm.
But she said if you are using tantrums all the time, you're 4 or 5. You're not thinking clearly. You're not getting anything done. You're a 4 or 5-year-old having a tantrum.
Right.
Versus, and the 4 or 5-year-old that has a tantrum, we all know this. If you have a 4 or 5-year-old that have tantrums, eventually you ignore them because they're just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Well,
right?
and a lot of times they're
So
not
don't
even
be a 4 or 5-year-old having a tantrum.
Right.
Be a person that goes great mother, great father when you have to.
Well, and I think if anybody takes the time to empathize with your child and to put yourself in their shoes,
or
whatever
they're curious.
Yes, like whatever they're freaking out about is not what they're upset about.
Yeah.
They have a tantrum because they feel like they aren't being heard. Right. And that doesn't mean giving in to them.
Right.
That doesn't mean giving them their way. That means I can see that you're feeling really frustrated about this. It sucks being frustrated. I don't like feeling frustrated either. And them just looking at you with those big giant eyes of, yeah, I hate being frustrated. And that's what they're upset about. It's not about like the toy or the candy or whatever it is.
Sharing.
Yeah.
One thing I learned from, and it is great that you get to piece different things from different people, but similar to what you said earlier, like changing fix to heal. Mm-hmm. Kerwin has a great one about frustration and confusion. He's like, you only frustrated and confused over things you don't know anything about. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So he says, all I do is I change that to, I have an opportunity to learn something new. Yep. Anytime he's confused or frustrated, he's like, instead of being frustrated and confused, turn into anger and disappointment and whatever, he turns it into, I have an opportunity to learn something new.
Yes. Stay curious.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Like, it's just such a cool, powerful, like, anytime I have a task, and it goes back to, too, like, the most gratifying things in life don't come easy. Right? They're hard. Like, running a business is hard. Mm-hmm. Staying in business is hard.
Well, for me right now, the season that I'm in, I'm working with investors, and it is different.
Is it frustrating and confusing?
It is so frustrating and
You're
confusing.
learning something new, Kate.
I've learned so much this year. I'm like, come at me. I'm ready. Like, you want to do 1031 exchange? I got you.
and then it goes, and that goes to the case, too. Like, you don't have to be overly positive about it. You just have to be aware.
Yeah.
Right? It's like right now, you could say, I'm in a frustrating part. It doesn't feel comfortable, and that's okay.
Yep. I'm
going to learn something new. I'm going to be better. And then there's going to be more opportunities that come from me being consistent. That's a big word in anything you do. I'm a big fan of the gym. You cannot see results after 2 days of eating well and going to the gym.
Right.
You have to be consistent.
Or even 2 weeks.
And that's why people, when you see someone in great physical shape, it's one of those things that's hard to attain. So people are very, I don't want to say appreciative of it, but they admire it. Right. And then, of course, depending on how you look at that, can turn into jealousy. But again, jealousy and admiration of the same person is just the same. It's the same emotion of they look up to the person. It's just portrayed differently.
Absolutely.
So, and again, and that's the one thing that Ted's great at is noticing all these different emotions coming at him means nothing about him. If that person's jealous, it means that they're not secure and this person is, basically.
Well,
and it's just different people to deal with.
He doesn't change his worldview to accommodate everybody else's.
That's a big one.
He is consistent.
Yeah.
And it's, oh my gosh.
If you can't lead your own life, your life leads you.
That just reminded me, in the very beginning, one of the players who's got a really tough exterior, and people who watch the show will know exactly who I'm talking about. He's all mad, and he leaves, and he goes, whew, he's mad about that. And then they look at each other, him and the assistant coach Beard, and go, imagine what he's going to feel like whenever he buys in and loves you. Oh, he's going to be furious. So.
Yep.
All right. I think that we have gone over our time because both of our watches are telling us that we need to stand up.
And I will tell you this, Ted Lasso, if you want to be on the show, you're more than welcome to give us your perspective.
Yes. Jason Sudeikis. I will listen the whole time.
No, Kate's going to be behind the glass like, oh my God, he's right there. But you have to come dressed as him. You can't come without.
With the stash.
And in character, with the dance moves.
I'm also willing to have Roy Kent, Jamie Tart.
I shared with Kate what tart means in England. So if any of our viewers across the seas, it's a fun one.
Oh, Danny Rojas.
Football is life. Football is also death, but football is life. So many quotable moments.
Okay,
It's one of the best.
seriously, here's your homework. After listening to this podcast, go get Apple TV, watch the series.
You
Add
can
a
get
little joy to your life.
free trial. They can get free trial of Apple TV. You don't have to go buy one. This right here has it on it.
Yes.
So if you have an iPhone, an iPad, I'm pretty sure 97% of people have access to something along there. Start your free trial. I promise you will finish it before your free trial ends.
Yes, for sure. And just add a little joy in your life. Stay curious. Thank you for tuning in.
Every choice is a chance, and we see you.
Bye.